What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We are getting tactical once again, and it is an auspicious Tuesday because we are about a week away from the beginning of the World Team Championship 2026. For those who don't know, Warhammer 40k does this thing where they take a bunch of players from every country and then they make them all fight in a big battle, which is pretty cool, I guess. Basically, each team will submit, or each country, will submit a team of 8 players. The players will play against one another in a predetermined format. Effectively, the teams will go back and forth determining who is paired against one another. They will play 8 individual games, so it's not like a doubles event or something where all of the players play on a single table. They play 8 individual games of Warhammer 40k. The team with the greatest difference in score between the others, which is broken down by out of a total of 20 for each table, so there's 20 available points in each game. Essentially, every 5 or more than 5 points you have over your opponent gains you one of those points. So you steal one from your opponent, you take it. So if you win by more than 55 points, by more than 5 points, for example, so 6 or higher, then it would be 11-9. If it's 11 or more points, it is 12-8, for example, and so on and so forth. And the teams with the greatest win. Pretty cool stuff. Everyone's very excited about it, and it is, generally speaking, the greatest concentration of Warhammer 40k knowledge and skill in the entire world. It is effectively the Olympics, kind of. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Some teams have submitted very boring rosters where they take like the best stuff in each faction, and that's just like where we're at. Let's maybe we can call out some of them. How about, like, let's see. Well, who's it? I'm sure I didn't look this up. I'm sure some team has the most stereotypical set of takes here. I guess, like, you could talk about, like, England over here, Grand Coven, Thousand Sons, okay, fair enough. Warp Tide, Legion of Excess, Chaos Demons, okay. Emperor's Children, Coder the Conceited, all right. Astra Militarum, kind of a cool pick, I guess. Siege Regiment, Brain Head Strike. Then we have Assimilation Swarm Tyranids, Warhorde Orks, Cursed Legion Necrons, Librarius Conclave. Oh, it's Shadowmark Talon, Space Marines. All right, that's interesting. Actually, that's cool. All right, that was a bad example. They have Raven Guard on their team. But every once in a while, a lot of the teams are just like 8 totally cookie cutter medalists, and some teams take it as an opportunity for spice, where they submit insane brews, and that's mostly what we're going to be talking about here today. Now, here's the other thing: if you are a singles player, I see a lot of people who go and they hyper-analyze team rosters. And they're like, oh my God, this team played this list. That's crazy. This list is meta now. And that's not necessarily the case. One of the things, the awkward parts about covering team events, and one of the reasons that I focus more heavily on singles events, is that obviously team events are much smaller contingent of the community. I would say probably about 5% of people who play competitive 40k actually participate in team play. And the other thing is that team lists are composed for very specific reasons. So every once in a while in here, we see weird detachment selections where you're like, huh, that's interesting. Why are we playing, like, fucking Persecution Prospect, my guy? And the reason for that, there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, it might be for matchup reasons. If there's a particular matchup that the team needs assistance against, you can take very specific builds in order to defeat them. Additionally, you can also take builds that are difficult for other teams to defeat, which is gives you a leg up in the pairing process. So as the two teams are deciding who to play against, if the other team's like, how the fuck do we kill, I don't know, a bunch of fucking Warhound Titans, nobody's gonna play those, but to my point, if there is a massive skew, we're going to play 120 Orc Boys in a Green Tide or something, you suddenly, the other team has to maybe take some non-standard selections in order to actually beat those armies. Lastly, there are some restrictions on team composition. The first one is that no faction can ever be duplicated, including Space Marines. If you have a Salamanders, for example, in this case, you cannot also have a Raven Guard. You cannot even have a Space Wolves or a Blood Angels. Even supplement Space Marine chapters cannot be duplicated. So sometimes you do see people digging a little deeper for factions that they are comfortable with or they feel is competitive than you would normally. Additionally, as of 11th edition, dispositions cannot be duplicated more than 2 times. All dispositions must be represented, is what I mean to say. You cannot duplicate them more than 2 times. Yeah, that's correct. There are 5 dispositions and there are 8 players, which means that 2 people, three people have to play a duplicate disposition for that math to work. And sometimes that just means that somebody gets shafted and has to play disruption. So every once in a while, you see people take weird, off-the-wall, like, sub-detachments or compositions in order to fulfill that. So, like, I think, for example, there's like a billion Tyranid players playing Subterranean Assault because it has disruption as a disposition, so their team can access disruption. We also see, like, a bunch of people on, there's just, like, all sorts of strange secondary factions as well, or secondary detachments, as well, that will have a particular disposition. So if you are looking at these from the lens of them being, like, I think, signals for the competitive metagame for singles events in the future, there are certainly some there's definitely some grains of salt that you have to be looking at WTC results with. That said, the fun thing about them is that they do give you a lens into how very high-ranking players are looking at playing very specific builds or sub-factions. So, like we talked about, we do have some people playing Raven Guard. We do have people playing Subterranean Assault. We do have people playing Chaos Knights. And if you want to see a list that at least works on some level, that's where it is. Although, if you're like, I'm going to win a GT with this, keep in mind, it may be much more focused on its potential matchups than you might be ready for. Anyway, that is my talk, my preface about this list discussion. And now let's talk about some fucking wild lists, chance. I'm very excited because there's a bunch of weird ones. Should we rip the Band-Aid off with a list I think has been duplicated a couple different times, but I'm excited. I'm especially excited to talk about it. Let's move over to Switzerland and talk about Ares Luthi, who's playing Pharaon's Armory Obeisance Phalanx. So that is the combination of the Titan, like, combo for Necrons. There's my map. Pharaon's Armory gives your flying Titanic units plus 6 inches of movement, so all their big, what's the big guy? Scarabtech construct? He doesn't get plus 6 movement, but everybody else does. All the other Titans do. So Tesseract, Vaults, Monoliths, and Obelisks all go super fast. Pharaon's Obeisance Phalanx has a -1 damage strat for vehicles. It does not say which vehicle you can use it on, so you can use it on big fucking Titans. So we can combo together fast Titans. They also have an AOC if you need 2 different defensive strats to 2 different units. So we can combo fast Giant Titans with hard to kill Giant Titans for value. And this is a good example of a list, I think, that is designed for the pairing process because it's, like, really weird and people are going to have a tough time actually answering it. We're rocking 2 Scorpic Lords with Scorpic Destroyers. She says little melee counterpunch. We're rocking Imhotep the Stormlord so that we can actually generate some command points to use all this stuff.
Edriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. What does the Tactical and Tortoise disposition do? 10 plus points at the end of the game if you have a Duncan product with you?
It makes you hyper fixate on, like, a decidedly C tier army composition, and then assume that no other army compositions are playable for that particular faction. But even though your win rate's, like, I don't know, 55% or something. It's really bad, actually. It's, like, almost as bad as Disruption, but not quite. Oh, speaking of which, we're playing Disruption as well on this one. This feels like it wants to be a take and hold kind of army, but it's likely, I think, that Disruption is here because we're doing it for the team composition. That said, Titanic units can shoot and perform actions, so it's not actually like that bad. We have Imhotep the Stormlord, Necrosaur Amatar to give self-sustained hits, as well as the Silent King. The Silent King in here to give an additional +2 movement or rerolls to the big boys. Which big boys do you say? 2 obelisks. Fucking sick. Obelisks are a weird thing, chat. So the Silent King is not actually a Titan, but he has like basically the defensive profile of a Titan because he has his Minions, so he's 26 total wounds with a 2+ save. He's pretty tough to take down, and then he's also sitting behind 2 of these weird goobers. These things are toughness 13 with 24 wounds. They do not have an invulnerable save, but you do have Armor of Contempt on a 2+ save, which is almost a 4+ invulnerable save, and you have access to -1 damage. So you have ways to keep them alive. If you don't kill them, they're going to start reanimating. It's a whole thing. This unit, it's the first instance of the Obelisk. Obviously, you have field allowance restrictions, so if you take more of them, then they get more expensive. Is 280 points. So you can consider it to be very slightly more than 1 Land Raider, right? A Land Raider is like between 220 and 250. So you can assume this one's like a Land Raider plus what? Like, not 20%, but like plus like 15% or so. And for that, you get 24 wounds at T13 with a 2+ save. Their ranged weapons are not particularly good. I want to say that I think Pharaon's Armory can buff them. I think that is the case. Yeah, you can give +1 AP to a Titanic unit. So we can make the Obelisk's guns AP 1, which is good. And then we could give them rerolls and stuff. So it has 4 of these Tesla spheres. So it's shooting 24. Anti-fly 2+ sustain hits 2. Gunshots, you can easily access ignore cover from Triarch Stalkers. So there's 2 Triarch Stalkers in the army, so they can shoot something and pull cover from it. Triarch Stalkers are also great for just like board control early, because they scout 8 inches for some reason. They're also a 4+ invulnerable save with 12 wounds, and you could use all the vehicle defensive strats, the -1 damage on them. So in like Star Shadow Arsenal, for example, they're like a mainstay because they're really annoying to kill. You just run this dude up in the middle and you're like, I don't know, -1 damage, he costs 100 points, I don't give a shit. If you send your whole army to kill him, you'll probably kill him, but your whole army has exposed itself to kill exactly one Triarch Stalker. The other one runs up, strips cover from you, and then we get +1 AP to an Obelisk. So it sits on 3s, probably rerolling 1s because of the Silent King, sustained hits 2, AP 1 damage. It's just so many attacks, right? On average, with reroll 1s, you're averaging like 30 hits. If you're shooting at a flying unit, which is like there's a lot of like specific units in the metagame that are flying. You can consider like a lot of Tau builds, for example, to have a lot of flying vehicles in them. So then at that point, you're winning on 4s. You're handing your opponent like 15 AP1 saves. That's a lot. We're not necessarily going to poo-poo that. The other thing that they do is this. Their Gravitic Pulse. This thing is exactly the big bad thing at the end of Superman or Man of Steel, right? It just does the big womp sky laser on the ground. When it does that, at the start of your opponent's movement phase, so you can run up and charge and get yourself into position before you select this. You select one enemy unit within 18 inches invisible to the Obelisk. Till the end of the turn, you have its movement characteristic and its advance and charge rolls. So let's say you start within 18 inches of the Obelisk, right? And I'm a move 12 advance and charge unit. So normally, I would be within a 5-inch charge or a 6-inch charge of the Obelisk at that 18 inches. And this is already a fast unit. Move 12 advance and charge is fucking super quick, right? And you're talking about like a Shadow Legion Blood Crusher unit with an upgrade from OG. I guess you can't do that anymore, but for the purposes of this, a Bloodthirster, a Shadow Legion Bloodthirster. The Fate Thirster is going to come hit you with his big axe, and you go, no. You are now move 6, so the charge goes from being a 6 to a 12. In addition to that, I have your advance roll. So on average, you would get another 3.5 on your advance roll. That goes to being 1.5. And I have your charge roll. So your charge goes from an average of 7 to an average of 3.5. So now your total average threat range becomes 11. You are 7 inches out of threat range of this unit, a charge that was previously almost but not quite unfailable. And that's a very fast unit. What if you, for example, hit, I don't know, like a bunch of aggressors or something that are move 5, and suddenly they're a snail slowly slugging their way across the table and trying as hard as they can to get to you. And then when they shoot you instead of charging, you have a bunch of defensive effects to keep this thing alive. So for, what do we say, 15% more than a Land Raider? This thing's pretty good. The first time in the world, the first time in history, the Necron Obelisk has been playable. It's pretty cool. In addition, if you are that Bloodthirster, you also take a bunch of damage because it gravitic pulses you onto the sky or from the sky onto the ground, and you fall down. So that's funny. It's a 4+. You take a mortal wound every time you move. So you could stand there and not do anything, right? You decide to stay on the ground instead of going to the sky. But if you do end up trying to move, it just drags you on the ground for a bit, and you take D3 mortals. Absolutely comedy gold. And you get 2 of these. So you can do it twice. Also, they deep strike. So you can drop them in places. I don't know if you'll do that because they do move incredibly quickly. They're move 14, 16 if the Silent King is giving them +2 movement. Fucking insane speeds. They go 14 over things if they want to do Take to the Skies. Plus, it is a bit of a benefit in the new edition. But if we take a peek, for example, at the actual confirmation of the miniature, it's off the ground quite a bit. Just grab the picture of it. So here's the actual Obelisk miniature. It looks like a big pyramid, but it's actually off the ground by, about 2/3 of a flight stand. So whatever that is, about 4 inches. Which is good because that gives it enough space to settle next to the new ruins. So previously we had ruins that were, especially at WTC, that were like 12 inches tall, and anything that was big and overhung its base, like basically couldn't move at all. However, this little silly goober can simply stand next to a ruin, and he overhangs it a little bit, and that's fine. So his movement is actually significantly less restricted than it would have been in previous editions. Whereas previously we would have seen things like some big super heavies and flyers and things like that get physically stuck behind walls and things because of the size of the miniature. The way that the terrain works in 11th edition means that doesn't happen so much. Pretty neat, chat. The Necron Obelisk spent a really long time being literally the worst unit in the entire game, and now multiple of them are appearing in WTC lists. What a time to be alive, folks. Absolutely incredible. So that's pretty cool, chat. Do we mean Avengers Age of Ultron? No. What? What are you talking about? Seen the Tesseract version? Yeah, the Tesseract version is very different. The Tesseract version has, it like branches out and overhangs. It's like twice as wide, basically. The Tesseract vault, I think, is still pretty big. All right. Next up, let's talk about some orcs. I want to head on over to... Oh. Apparently I can't spell today. Our friends over here in Oceania. The Womp Womp machine in Age of Ultron? I don't believe so. The Womp Womp machine in Man of Steel, chat. Do I need to like pull up a clip? That was like the quintessential sky laser for a decade, is that everyone talked about. What are y'all talking about? All right. Let's move over to New Zealand and talk about Alex Cameron, who is playing Dread Mob. Kind of sick. We also take more DACA with this one as well. So Dread Mob is, it's been a little while since we talked about this one, but it's an attachment that buffs your walkers and your Grot vehicles and things. So when you are selected to shoot or fight, if you have a mech or are an orc walker or you are a Grot vehicle, which used to be more relevant but is not so much anymore, you get either lethal or sustained hits or critical or bonus armor penetration on a random result. However, if you wish to, you can push the effect to select the ability that you want, either sustained hits or lethal hits or critical additional precision, but you gain hazardous. The entire detachment is about stacking hazardous to give you more opportunities to get cool things. However, with the added caveat that you probably kill yourself on the way. If you already have hazardous and you give yourself hazardous again, you have a 50-50 chance to fail hazardous, and instead of just a 33% chance to fail hazardous. Now we're going to combo that with more DACA, which gives us access to some incredible enhancements. So we're probably going to see, I imagine, some, what's the things? Dead Shining Shooters to give rapid fire. But we also get sustained hits 1 naturally on your infantry while you are in the WOG. Now, this affects infantry units, not infantry models. So if we have units with infantry models attached, it will still affect them because the unit is both an infantry and whatever else as well. Plus, we get to do all of those other things more consistently because we have access to assault game-wide. So let's talk about exactly what we are doing in this list. We're running Zodgrod Warsnaga with a Gretchen unit. This is important because the detachment has a reactive move for Gretchens explicitly, and which is like really good. It gives you, I think it's a flat 6 reactive move, but it also deals mortal wounds to whatever triggered it, which is funny. The other thing is that because it only needs WOG for sustained on its guns and like an invuln save, a lot of times it WOGs really early. So you have Zodgrad and the Gretchen like scout up into the middle. If they don't get hit turn 1, you like bottom of 1 or top of 2, just WOG to send them 18 or whatever directly into your opponent's face and just jail them and prevent them from getting to your actual guns. Speaking of actual guns, we have a Luda squad with Big Mech with Shock Attack on, Dead Shiny Shooters on this guy, so the entire unit gets rapid fire. So that's also going to affect the Big Mech as well. So he's getting bonus shots with his big D6 damage gun. Second instance of that same thing. Third instance of that same thing. Sensing a theme. We have Wazaka Guts Mech. Pretty cool. He doesn't get any benefits that explicitly, but he's good, so we take him. Gretchen, our battle line in Dreadmob, so we get a billion Gretchen to hold down, to act as utility, trucks to carry them around in, and then walker vehicles. So big mech DACA rigs. Now, the thing here is that if they already have sustained hits, they don't get bonus sustained hits from the detached ability. However, it does mean that we can choose other effects. So these guys get sustained hits just like sort of naturally, but we can choose like lethal hits or bonus AP for them, which is also always very good. The other thing is that the stratagems for these are crazy. We have, for example, bigger shells for bigger gits. This you can use on either the Ludas because they have a mech with them, or the walkers, so things like the DACA rigs, which gives you +1 to wound against monsters or vehicles. And if you hit the button to push the stratagem farther when you select them to shoot, you can also give yourself hazardous and +1 damage. So the DACA rig can be firing just this mass 3 and 4 damage gunshots for 115 points. Obviously, this is also incredible on the Ludas, which already have like sort of accuracy built in because they're going to be able to reroll hits against things on objectives. So the Ludas themselves are relatively accurate. However, because they're a mech, they can get +1 to wound, they can get +1 damage. So you can have your big mech with shock attack on wounding basically everything on 3s or 4s. They can pray for lethal or sustain, and then they're shooting D6 +1 damage apiece with their big shock attack gun. So these guys go pretty wild with that. And then the other one is that we can give ourselves hit rerolls on any of these walkers, so we can make those sustained and lethal hits more likely to proc with DACA. So we can just be full rerolling to get basically offset the one downside that the DACA rig has, which is that its ballistic skill is kind of mid. I'm glad that they upcharged these things a little bit. They were 100 points at release, and we laughed at them a little bit before the new edition came out because they're just like basically mass like low AP shooting, which in 10th edition was trash. In 11th edition is very good, but they shoot because they get a bonus 6 attacks in the blitz cannon against infantry. They shoot 20 sustained hits attacks against infantry models. A lot of times they'll hit on 6s, maybe 5s if they are benefiting from heavy, or we can get away to ignore cover, or we're just not shooting into cover. We can potentially get them down to 4s, but we can get them down to 4s, full reroll, lethal, and sustain. So these things individually will just absolutely overperform for 115 points. 20 shots. Maybe shooting at a vehicle, we're like only 14 shots, but potentially getting down to 4+ ballistic skill, full hit rerolls, or either +1 to wound, +1 damage as well. So for 115 points, these things go absolutely fucking nuts. We've got a bunch of flash kits as well, just for some additional infantry sweeping commandos for the midboard, and that's about it. It's the DACA rig dread mob, which is sick. So we're basically just essentially using because most of our weapons have sustained hits already, or at least the DACA rigs do. The flash kits, I think, get lethal hits once per game is their thing. But we can basically like burn our WOG early, or we can use it in order to create table space so that we can just get 2 to 3 rounds of shooting into our opponent, which is 1,000,000 units, right? 2 Luda units, 3 Luda units, 2 flash kit units, 3 DACA rigs. Is enough shooting to ruin most armies if you're able to activate it more than one time. So, pretty sick, chat. It's cool that the release of this like one new little goober has kind of totally reinvigorated this weird like C-tier composition for orcs that was always sort of bizarre, which is absolutely cool. There's a sky laser in Man of Steel. Are you serious, chat? What are you guys talking about right now? It's this thing. This guy. Oh. I clicked on a link and it downloaded the image for me. Not exactly what I was looking for. Google, but thanks to it, appreciate it. This guy, dude, the fucking world engine thing. That's just a Necron Obelisk. That's just what a Necron Obelisk does. It goes wub wub wub, and you get really slow. That was just like, it was like grabbing everyone and pulling them in the sky and then slamming them on the ground again. Wub 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 wub. It was the classic wub wub, the OG wub wub, if you will. The dubstep engine. All right. We shall move on. I want to take a brief aside to a list after my very own rotted and diseased heart. We will go over here to Slovakia and talk about Matej Rake, who is playing maybe my favorite list of all time. It's Demonic Incursion, chat. In the year of our Lord, 2026, the 11th edition of Warhammer 40,000, Demonic Incursion is back, baby! We are taking it has to take disruption. That's just what it has. So I have a sneaky suspicion some of this might have been that we wanted to take it so that we had a disruption pick. And it can offer some, like, interesting counterplay potential. This particular list, back in the day, so if you're a 10th edition fan, you may have remembered that this list was relatively popular for a while because you could just play between 6 and 7 Greater Demons and nothing else in your army. Your army was like 7 models. They were ridiculously mobile. Demonic Incursion has just like some of the most insane mobility stratagems of all time. Let me grab the detachments here. So the baseline detachment ability is that when you're in Shadow of Chaos, which if your entire army is Greater Demons, is just like ruinously easy to do. You just put a Greater Demon anywhere on the table and suddenly 6 inches of it is Shadow of Chaos. Sometimes it's keyword specific, but most of the time you can just put stuff next to them. And then you also have stratagems to 6-inch Deep Strike naturally, so you can construct the little shadow zones. You also have stratagems to up-down, and their up-down, interestingly, and uniquely in the game, basically, allowed you to come in turn 1 even before they eroded a bunch of the strat reserve effects. So you can't naturally ingress move on Battle Round 1 unless otherwise specified. For whatever reason, Realm of Chaos allows you to pick up 2 demon units, and put them in strat reserve. Unlike a lot of other stratagems like this, many stratagems were like, you can pick up 2 units, but or you can pick up like between 1 and 2 units, depending on the keywords or whatever. They go into strat reserve, and then you can do whatever you want with them. Sometimes they'll get a bonus next turn. Realm of Chaos was it required you to pick 2 things in Shadow of Chaos, which was the only restriction, but it did require them to come back next turn. That was actually kind of a buff in the initial release of 11th edition, because it was one of the only up-down strats that could reposition yourself on turn 1. Because you were required to arrive on the subsequent turn, you couldn't legally not ingress your models. You had to, which meant you overrode the ingress restrictions. Now a bunch of factions can do that. A bunch of like randomly selected factions can do that, I guess. Of course, they have eroded it into Realm of Chaos. So what this means is that you have the capacity to either deploy Greater Demons from the bottom of turn 1, like onto midboard objectives. You can, like, if your opponent goes first, you go second. You up-E bottom, top of 1, and then you just drop Great Unclean Ones and shit onto central objectives and do actions immediately. Already kind of sweet. But good for disruption, for sure. You can also take things like Lord of Change, and you can, if your opponent exposes any units, you can up down the Lord of Change and grab a line of sight and just kill those units that are coming out to do actions, or to contest you, or to stage. And the Lord of Change with Everstave is probably one of the highest damage Lords of Change, at least without any support. So the baseline Lord of Change shoots 2 guns at 18 inches, to the Bolt of Change, which is 9 shots, AP 2, 3 damage. They give themselves +1 strength, so they're strength 10. And then the Rod of Sorcery is another 6 shots and strength 9, AP 1, 2 damage. However, the Everstave gives you +2 strength and +6 inches range on all your guns. So it goes to range 24, strength 12, strength 12, and strength 11. So suddenly this dude's like blowing tanks up consistently. And especially if you can get him rerolls from like Bellicor or something, he goes insane. So he's like the spookiest Lord of Change of all the Lords of Change. And then you can also redeploy him on the first battle round to go shoot stuff. So that's like what Demonic Incursion has going for it. But with the new Deep Strike restrictions and how hard it is to charge out Deep Strike and placing models, it has kind of fallen off. So it's interesting that we see it come back here. We're taking Endless Gift, Great Unclean One, so he has a 5+ Feel No Pain all the time. We have Kairos Fate Weaver, a Lord of Change with the Everstave, as we talked about, and interestingly, Shalaxi Hellbane, which I'm going to level with you, chat. I forget what she does, because it's been so long since anyone in their right mind has played Shalaxi Hellbane. She was an auto-include in every single demon army that could take her for a really long time, because she ended up... she just got full hit and mood rerolls against monster vehicle character, which is like fucking wild. It was insane. In this case, she chooses an enemy model to be the quarry. Each time you make an attack against the quarry, roll, hit roll, and wound roll. If the quarry is destroyed, she selects a new enemy unit. It's melee attack only, so it does work only on melee. She gets reroll, advance, and charge rolls. There is a stratagem to advance and charge inside Demonic Incursion, so she is relatively quick, right? Coming in at move 14, advance and charge with rerolls. And then also being able to reroll charges out of reserve is actually not too bad. The downside, I think, is that the melee profile is like kind of uninspiring, I guess, if you're not hitting your specific target. It's strength 12, AP 3, D6 +2 damage, so it's kind of like it's like a Void Dragon Plus, I guess. It's like Nightbringer without devastating wounds. It does have the extra attack weapon, which is nice. But the other thing is that because it was nerfed, Shalaxi Hellbane ends up being kind of not too expensive, 315 points for otherwise a pretty brutal profile. Used to have Feel No Pain also built in, and a minus attack aura, but those are all gone as well. So, fair enough, I guess. But we have Shalaxi, we have Scarbrand for another just beat stick. No Bellicor today, but we are taking 2 Nurglings of Plague Bearer Squad for the backline. Nice thing here is that these guys get to obsec some objectives, and then late game you can just up down them and they can go steal objectives elsewhere. A Beast of Nurgle squad, Flamers, and a Fleshhound squad for utility. I mostly just like that Demonic Adventuring Party is back. So that's my pitch. That's all I have to say. I think it's fun. Shalaxi is Bay even if nerfed. I mean, I guess. I don't think we'll ever get past the Index Demon, like, Knight murdering Shalaxi Hellbane, where it was just fucking wild. Just everyone would be dead. It was like strength 14. I think it was only d6 plus 1 damage at that time, but it might have been d6 plus 2, but it was strength 14. I think it was reroll hit, wound, and damage against monster vehicle character permanently all the time. So you had like 4 devastating attacks that you would fish for devastating wounds, and the rest of them were just basically would full convert every time, and then always get good damage if they got through the invuln. The only way you lived is if you spiked invulns really hard and only like 1 hit went through. Otherwise, she would kill literally any monster vehicle character in the game, basically without like working for it. It was insane. To the point that they eventually had to make her cost more than a lot of knights, which was pretty wild. Definitely someone's favorite character, and they just printed every single ability on the data sheet, which is insane. All right. Let's talk about something else. We can head on over to Northern Ireland. So some of these teams are, I don't know. The politics of Europe are certainly an interesting can of worms. It is very interesting that like the United Kingdom gets like just a billion teams. I think for a while they had it's like Ireland, of course, is a separate country, so we got Ireland separately, but then we had England and Wales, and Scotland, and Northern Ireland. England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. I don't know if there's still a Welsh team. Is that true? There sure is. So one country gets 4 teams, which is always, I don't know, very humorous to me. That does mean that you do start digging pretty deep, I think, for people to get onto your teams, people who are willing to go play for like an entire week in Belgium. And so yeah, anyway, that's where we're at. We do have, what did I want to talk about here? Oh yeah, Black Templars chat. Pretty cool. It has been a while since we've seen Black Templars doing well, and I think a lot of people have been very upset with Black Templars' position and in the metagame right now, but a couple people are feeling them out. They're feeling good with them. In this case, we're playing Godhammer, Assault Force, and the Living Miracle. So the Emperor's Champion detachment. Godhammer Assault Force is the Land Raider detachment, I think. Each time a unit from your army declares a charge, if you disembark from a transport that turn, after selecting the targets of the charge, one of those targets must take a Battleshock check. It's interesting. It's after selecting, but before movement. So you take a Battleshock check before you move them. Weird. All right. Then each time a model in Stardust unit from your army makes a melee attack, if you disembark from a transport, you get +1 to hit. So if we can jump people out of transports and run them at the enemy, then we're good. We get a reactive move, end of the fight phase. If you were eligible to fight, you can make a normal move, but cannot embark within a transport. Oh, if you disembarked at the same turn. But if you because it's going to be used at the end of either player's fight phase, you can potentially be there for a turn, get countercharged, unengage yourself, then move back in the transport, then re-disembark in order to sort of keep the cycle going with +1 to hit. You can disembark your units wholly within 6 inches of a Land Raider and can be set up within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Using a Land Raider that has not yet been selected to move. So this essentially allows you to sort of do a tactical disembark into melee, or just a regular disembark, but you can go farther, so you're not necessarily reliant on the assault ramp in order to get people in. You can move vehicles through terrain features. It's always good. After you make a charge roll for an Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that disembarked your transport, each time you make a charge move, you can move through models. And you can move within engagement range of enemy models, but cannot end the engagement range within the engagement range of enemy models unless you declare them as charge target. That stratagem is always kind of bad. So they went through a whole spate of releasing this stratagem, move through models when you charge, and like No one ever used them. They were so difficult to use in a way that you couldn't just get from piling in. It was like, okay. If you do that in the maybe in the movement phase, if you can do it on stuff that moves really far, but even then with 2-inch engagement ranges, it's so hard to like space outside of engagement range before you charge people. I don't know. It's so weird. Condemnatory Info Screed gives a transport reroll wounds of a model in your unit that disembarks a transport may reroll wounds of 1 in the fight phase, and if you disembark a land raider, you can reroll wounds instead. So we can source ourselves +1 to hit and full wound rerolls potentially. If we jump out of our transports, can also get -1 damage in the shooting phase for your own vehicles. I have a sneaking suspicion that part of the reason we're playing this is because Land Raiders are kind of hard to kill, and we can do a bunch of things that buff Land Raiders. So it's a little bit of the Obelisk thing, but we're doing it with Space Marines. We have a Crusader squad, 10-man, with an Emperor's Champion with the enhancement from, I think that's the enhancement from the Living Miracle, right? Oh no, Anointed Champion is the enhancement. Oh no, just kidding. Yeah, that is the enhancement from Living Miracle, excuse me. Anointed Champion is the detachment ability they get. Where a lot of this stuff I'm learning on the fly because I don't necessarily know the Godhammer Assault Force stratagems. We have High Marshal Helbrecht with a Castellan, a Crusader squad, a Marshal Paragon Fury plus a Lieutenant plus a Crusader squad, an Execrator plus a Crusader squad. So 1 billion Crusader squads, good for disruption as well because they just as to take objectives for people because it is so many individual OC2 models. We then have an Intercessor squad and 3 Land Raider Redeemers plus a Scout squad for utility. Incredible. So we're just trundling up the table with fucking, what is that? 48 wounds of T12, potentially -1 damage, 2+ armor save. And if it gets near you, here's a bunch of idiots that are +1 to hit and full wound rerolls, baby. Let's go. Pretty straightforward. We love that stuff. That's cool. GW is a UK country. That is true. The WTC is not a GW event, though, to be clear. Absolutely insane. No, that's not the only interesting list that Northern Ireland brought. They also brought a Shamblerot Victorium, which is kind of sick. So that's the Death Guard detachment that focuses on Poxwalkers. So if we go, this is the one that lets you bring additional Poxwalkers based on the size of the game and then reserve them over the course. So in your command phase, in each of the following battle rounds, depending on the chosen battle sides, add a new Poxwalker unit to your army with a starting strength of 10 in strat reserve. So Strike Force, you get a Poxwalker unit on battle rounds 2, 3, and 4. Now the nice thing here is that in a lot of cases we want to take a bunch of Poxwalkers anyway, but we want to take like fighty Poxwalkers. We don't necessarily want to take utility units because what we would love to do is just bring in a bunch of Poxwalkers from the sides to get all of our stupid secondaries that we draw. So the benefit that this lets you do is essentially like save a bunch of points on like idiot utility you normally bring in order to bring more actual beef. We're taking we're saying also this with Paragons and Putrescents, so we get the bonus contagion range on character units. We're taking a Noxious Blightbringer. Now if I remember correctly, he does attach to Poxwalkers and he makes them faster. While he's landing a unit, you get +1 move characteristic to models in that unit, and you reroll advance and charge rolls. Pretty good. Rerolling advance and charge rolls on the unit's baseline is kind of nice because then we can heroically intervene more effectively with them too. And they're relatively big units, so dodging heroic interventions is tough. So we have a Noxious Blightbringer. He's bringing Witherbone Pipes. Excuse me. That is +1 OC to models in the unit, and every time they take a Battleshock or Leadership chance, you get +1. Sick. So they end up being like basically Leadership 5, right? We have Typhus, who's inside the unit himself as well. If the Poxwalkers are still there, and he kills people with his psychic power, he can use their ability to regenerate more Poxwalkers, which is nice. We have a Foul Blight Spawn in a Plague Marine unit, a Malignant Plague Caster with Lord of the Walking Pox. This gives you turn 1 Strat Reserve, which is kind of interesting, inside another unit of Poxwalkers. Malignant Plaguecaster by himself, so he just shoots people with his cool ranged attack. Just one Poxwalker unit in the army. As I said before, we don't have to take too many of them because we get 30 Poxwalkers for free. We're taking 1 billion additional Poxwalkers. Basically, another almost 200 points of models in the army is the detachment ability over the course of the game. 1 Chaos Rhino, a unit of Chaos Bond just for turn 1 actions and stuff. Double Defilers just to shoot people, plus a Knight Despoiler. Incredible. Double Despoiler, Battle Cannon, Knight Despoiler. Did not expect that. I'm gonna level chat. I was not prepared for the surprise Knight Despoiler. I was like, oh, it's gonna be Defilers and things. Nope. There's just a fucking whole ass knight right there. Nice thing here, of course, is that the big thing and the reason that you oftentimes see knights and other allies inside Death Guard specifically is that Death Guard's whole deal is debuffing enemies, which is kind of a universal effect. If your stats are lower, it's easier for people to kill you. It doesn't matter who's holding the gun that kills you. It just matters that you are shot at. So a double Despoiler Battle Cannon can basically be +1 AP and +1 damage in a lot of cases. And this is further sort of allowed by the Paragons of Putrescence, or further, this moves. I didn't know that. That's cool. Further in synergized with by Paragons of Putrescence, because you can extend your contagion range farther on your character unit, so you can more easily get more things into that aura, and you can potentially get them in that aura from turn 2 onwards, because you get a 9-inch contagion range on battle round 2. Then the Knight Despoiler can shoot you. It's shooting potentially what is it, like 4d6 plus 12 strength 10 AP 1 3 damage, which in past editions was a little bit awkward because you would just save on your base save because you were always in cover. But if they reduce your save characteristic with the what is it, Rattle Joint Ague or whatever, the contagion, and they give you -1 toughness. Even if your toughness 10 or 11, it gives the Despoiler +1 to wound, and then you're saving on a lower number. So the chances that the Knight Despoiler just kills you immediately is pretty high. I believe the Defilers will also strip cover for it as well, because I don't think that their ability requires that it is a Death Guard unit shooting. But I think that's worth looking at. Yeah, it just says you don't have cover. So you can be effectively +1 to hit, +1 to wound, +1 AP. If everything combos off together. If you're able to get one of these characters with extended contagion range into an enemy unit and shoot them with one of the Defiler like subguns, then this Knight Despoiler just absolutely vaporizes something. The Knight Despoiler also being this essentially the same defensive profile as the Defilers does mean that you do have this like presence on the board where it's very, you have so much of this relatively fast, high output shooting that's on this like T11 5+ invuln save defensive profile. So your opponent really has to have the correct set of profiles to deal with you. Plus, I mean, let's not forget, right? A Poxwalker unit is not the easiest thing in the world to kill. They're T4, which doesn't feel like that much until you start rolling all your anti-infantry shooting into it and you realize like how much harder they are than like a guardsman or something. And they have a 5+ feel no pain. So a lot of times if you have a profile that you expect to kill 10, T3 utility infantry, it will not kill a Poxwalker squad. And so being able to just fill the board, like the flanks of the table with Poxwalkers that are always threatening to score points, means that you really have to split your focus between actually killing the fucking 3 like knight equivalents that are shooting at you, or dedicating legitimate resources to kill Poxwalkers. I love this list, chat. This just rules. This is sick. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say. I think that's super cool. Incredible. They should have put it in spoiler tags. You gotta click on it. That's why it's called a night dispoiler. Ayo. Got him. Now there is... let's talk about Space Marines for a sec here, chat. We've talked about some Chaos factions. We've talked about some other stuff. I want to talk about regular old Space Marines. Codex compliant Space Marines. Now there's been a little bit of, I would say, what's the word? Discourse about some of the Codex compliant Space Marine chapters that have been submitted. The big ones like Shadowmark Talon coming back in a big way. Just basically being able to use multiple of these like big deep strike bricks that can jump in and actually be legitimately spooky is cool. I don't know. Plus you get like Raven Guard characters are great. Caven Shrike's insane. Aeth and Sean also great. And then a lot of them are using Terminators and things to act as these like big shooting batteries. Pretty cool. I like it. However, what I want to talk about is Hammer of Avernii because Team Italy has submitted Iron Hands as their chosen Space Marine faction. I actually don't know if any army or any teams did not submit a Space Marine faction. That actually would legitimately surprise me. All right. In this case, we are playing Mini Gilliman, Canicvar. In Hammer of Avernii, he gets 2 Oath of Moment targets. Which is sweet. You select 1 Oath of Moment target, and when it's dead, if he can see something, he can make it a 2nd Oath of Moment target. Pretty cool. He's also running Vengeful Hosts as the second one, which we've talked about briefly. This is kind of a it's like feels like a Blood Angel specific detachment, but it's just good. It gives you access to take and hold, but also gives you your flying infantry reroll hits of 1 when they arrive via ingress. Or charge, I guess. So it's good for your disruption pieces. So if you're running like jump pack intercessors or you're running Vanguard veterans, whatever, that's all very good for those. However, the big kicker is it's also good for Inceptor squads. So those guys being able to jump in 6 inches away and just gat people to death, especially alongside the fact that if you do that to a unit, you can then Canicvar switch your oath to a 2nd unit and do it again, can be incredibly important. In this case, running Canicvar with a steel front Terminator Enchant, so that or steel font, excuse me. I always call this steel front because it feels very natural. Like that feels like it would be a name of an Iron Hands thing, but also it's a bunch of storm shields in the middle of the table. The Terminator, the steel font regenerates a model back to the Terminator Assault Squad every one of your command phases. It's a good place for Canicvar to go. He gives Scout to a unit, so he gives Scout to his unit. Plus, he gives them either lethal or sustained based on what they're targeting. So it makes them very reliable against a lot of different profiles. You can kind of offset the relatively limited attacks that they typically get into infantry by giving sustain, or you can offset their kind of mediocre strength into vehicles. In this case, however, I think in order to keep costs down, we have actually eschewed a lot of Thunderhammers. We're taking a bunch of Lightning Claws, which are high attack volume, so they do love both lethal and sustain. They're good with that. But the other thing is that because we have Steel Font, we don't necessarily need 100% Storm Shield Terminators, because we always have the option to regenerate a model back into our Storm Shield allocation group. So even if you're being shot by 3 damage weapons, you eat all the hits on the Storm Shields, they all die. Then you regenerate 1 back. The next time you get shot by 3 damage weapons, you're going to eat 2 of them on a Storm Shield. Then go to your Lightning Claw allocation group. Now, as long as it all doesn't happen at once, effectively, you're going to be able to get a lot of additional use out of those Storm Shields. Pretty cool. We have a second Terminator Assault Squad with 50-50 Thunderhammer and Lightning Claws. Spiritus Ferrum on the captain. I don't know what that does, chat. Is that a Hammer of Avernus? Yes. That gives him +1 attack once per battle. Oh, it's fucking Champion of the Feast. They just reprinted Champion of the Feast again. All right. I guess because Hammer of Avernii is an evolution of First Company Task Force, and that was like their whole thing for First Company. It was a bunch of enhancements that you would give a bonus to the bearer, but then once per game you could give the bonus to the whole unit. It's +1 attack to the bearer's melee weapons, and once per battle, you can use the enhancement. It gives +1 attack to melee weapons equipped by all models in the bearer's unit. So we can make all those Storm Shield guys hit pretty hard. We have a Jump Pack Chaplain with Vanguard Veteran Squad, big 10-man with Inferno Pistols. So these guys get reroll once they hit. Although I don't know if the Infernal Pistol very often if they come out of reserve because they are too far away. So I guess they probably wouldn't get the rerolls on their shooting almost ever. fair enough, I guess. We have Orcs Band of the Chaplain, so offset his low AP melee weapon, but he gives +1 to wound, which is good. We then have an Intercessor Squad, Double Ballistic Dreadnought, an Incursor Squad, Infiltrator Squad, Landspeeder, and a Scout Squad. What's fascinating about this to me is that we don't have the Inceptors. I talked about the Inceptors being great with this detachment, but I guess we're just rocking some rerolling melee attacks. The nice thing, of course, is that we get access to a bunch of oaths. So we can oath something for shooting, have the Ballistic Dreadnoughts blow it up, flip the oath back to something that your Terminators are about to charge, and then when you charge with your Vanguard Veteran Squad, for example, there is a stratagem. I'm going to fact check myself here because it's been a hot minute. For +1 to hit on Veteran Squads or Dreadnoughts. So we can get the Vanguard Veterans to charge, unlock their reroll 1s from the Detachment ability, give them +1 to hit, so they hit on 2s rerolling 1s, basically like getting an oath, and then they also already have +1 to wound from the Chaplain, so they don't need oath at all. So that stratagem on that unit in that detachment is effectively a third oath activation. So we're offsetting the fact that the current Space Marine Codex is basically written around having a bunch of oaths of moment by just taking a bunch of overlapping effects that duplicate Oath of Moment. I guess, like, similarly, we do also have Incursors, so we can shoot people and then get the +1 to hit on with them too, so we don't necessarily need the other benefits. So potentially you could, like, Incursor someone, shoot them with the pistols, the Inferno Pistols, blow something up, then charge a second unit, and you get, like, you basically, like, triple up on all of those buffs. I think this list is cool. It's pretty neat, chat. Pretty neat. And it's cool, and it's 20 Assault Terminators, which is people's favorite thing. So, let's go. All right. What else we got going on? I have some ones to pick from. In my notes here. I guess we'll stay on Space Marines for a sec. Could talk about Romania. Oh yeah, this one's a cool one. So over here in Romania, we've decided that we like playing Space Wolves. And unlike playing a lot of Space Wolves factions, we are playing Bastion Task Force, which is the one that benefits all your battle line stuff. Gives you advanced shoot and charge your battle line units, and then they can give rerolls to people. Pretty sweet. Now, Space Wolves do have a pretty reasonable selection of battle line units. They have things like Blood Claws, and Grey Hunters. It's a little bit of an overlap that Blood Claws already have advanced and charge. So it's a little funny. Ragnar Blackbane does give them rerolls. I think he gives them full wound rerolls, or is it hit and wound rerolls if he leads the unit? Either way, he gives them a billion extra attacks. He gives them reroll wounds. So realistically, I guess you can get reroll ones to hit from Auspex scanning. You can advance and shoot thanks to the detachment, so you can run in and shoot to trigger Auspex scan, and then you charge, and then they get reroll ones to hit and full wound rerolls just built in, so that tracks. A lot of the output of the unit comes from Ragnar himself, because he has 8 sustained hits melee attacks, which is sick, that are like hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, full wound rerolls. If you're not T12, he'll fuck you the hell up, which is good. We then have Blades of Valor on a Grey Hunter squad with a Wolfguard battle leader. Kind of awesome. This is where I sort of assumed that this detachment was going, and it exactly is. Grey Hunters also get wound rerolls back, like just built in. If they target something on an objective marker, they reroll wounds. They themselves have 4 chainsword attacks apiece. The Wolfguard battle leader gives them sustained hits, and Blades of Valor gives them +1 AP. So you're attacking. I guess technically there's a Power Fist in there probably. So it's like, but it's still somewhere around 40 attacks with +1 AP. AP2, Strength 4, full rerolls. Kind of sweet. The other thing, too, is that the Wolfguard Battle Leader gives them reroll once they hit. So, again, we have another unit that we don't necessarily need to even trigger Aspect Scan on, but we can get reroll once they hit and full rerolls thanks to the attached character. He himself hits pretty hard as well. He's swinging, I think he's 7 attacks with a 2 damage power weapon as well. So, the units in total is swinging 36 1 damage AP2 and, what is it, 10 2 damage AP3? That's pretty good. I don't know about you, but that seems okay. We have a Wolf Priest with Hero of the Chapter with 6 Wolfguard Head Takers. That makes him battle line, so his unit can benefit from the advance and do stuff things. They don't count as battle line models, which means they do lose out on a couple of the stratagem buffs, I believe. It is the bearer against battle line keyword, which in Bastion, I wish it would just let me look at the fucking detachment ability. This app chats, I swear. In Bastion Task Force, it gives your units the ability to advance or fall back, but it does not give your, oh, it does give them the ability to Auspex. Huh. I think it just affects stratagems where you don't get the bonuses. There's some of the stratagems where battle line models in the unit gain bonuses. Maybe I'm stupid. I could have sworn that there was a downside, but I guess there's not. Huh. Fair enough, I guess. Yeah. Battle line unit. Yeah. All right. Well, fair enough. So it just basically makes the unit battle line, I suppose. And then it also gives them +1 to wound, which is sweet. Maybe it's Blades of Vengeance. Is it Blades of Vengeance? Is that what I'm thinking of? Or Blades of Valor, excuse me. Battle line models. Yeah, okay. So if you dual attach into a unit and take both Hero of the Chapter and Blades of Valor, so if you take a support and a regular character, then you cannot get +1 AP on the non-battle line members of the unit. So any support characters or whatever. But you can on the bearer and everyone else. So it just makes all these guys AP3 and AP2. Pretty cool. So in this case, the Wolf Priest now unlocks all of the synergies for the unit because of this enhancement for the head takers. We have Bjorn the Fell-Handed plus a copy up lieutenant, a bunch of assault intercessors with jump packs. We can unlock advance and charge on those guys. From Heresy Undone for a command point. If you Auspex scan something, which you should be able to do because we have Grey Hunters and fucking heavy bolt pistols everywhere that are advancing around the table. So all you have to do is just shoot a unit and ping them in order to unlock the Auspex scan that then lets you pay a CP in the charge phase to let the assault intercessors advance and charge. Downside, of course, is that you are not able to reroll the charge if that happens. So hopefully you hit it. Because you already used a strat on the unit. We have double land speeders, a Fenrician Wolf squad, a scout squad, a Storm Speeder Hammer Strike with Raptorial Cogitator Core, plus double Vindicators. We can also use this strat and also Codex Discipline to give rerolls or advance and shoot onto the Vindicators as well. So the Vindicators actually do get a relatively impressive amp of threat range off of this. The real interesting thing is the combo of like units like Grey Hunters, these faction-specific battle line units with Bastion Task Force. There was a combo, I think I played it on a stream game a while ago, but it was if you played Njal Stormcaller inside this detachment. It was really sick because he could make Grey Hunters auto-advance 6. So you had this unit that just had this prodigious threat range. Would move 13 in charge. So there's a bunch of like little interesting little wombo combos with like the attached onto the Grey Hunters, which is I think is pretty neat. But yeah, I like that list, chat. There are, of course, some Space Wolf lists going around that are running like all the Terminators and stuff like that. But I think the inclusion of just this like mass disruption army that just has a bunch of like objective taking is pretty cool. I like that quite a bit. I do want to take a moment to talk about Chaos Knights. It's been like 1 billion years since Chaos Knights were like almost at all viable, and they are back in a little way in this sorry chat in this event because of Houndpack Lance. You're basically just being able to drop like 1 billion 10 toughest 10 models onto the table, and that's pretty good. They're high OC, they're relatively quick, and so in the team format where that is a like legitimate consideration, where some of the more the dancier armies in the game might not be able to, like, don't have the beef to be able to deal with that. That's a pairing nightmare. Might unlock some of your lesser played dispositions as well if you have an army like this. So in this case, Dick van der Harst is running a Houndpack Lance with 1, 2, 3 Wardog Carnivores, 1, 2, 3, 4 Wardog Brigands, 1, 2, 3, 4 Wardog Executioners, 1, 2, 3 additional Wardog Carnivores. They all gain battle line in this attachment, so you can take up to 6 of each variety. Because you're playing Iconoclast fiefdom, that unlocks the use of damned units from the Codex Chaos Space Marines, and we can take 2 Cultist Mobs as well for you, so we have additional utility. Don't have much else to say there, but I do just want to shout out Chaos Knights. They're doing something. They're like the worst performing faction in the game right now, but that doesn't stop them from seeing play at WTC, because we're, like I said, we're digging deep up in here, which is pretty sweet. The 10th had PTSD, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So there's a couple other ones, I think, while we're on the sort of a chaos train here. I do want to talk about, is it here? Yeah. France. I'm gonna need a minute here because I don't know what any of these units do. Nicolas Seguier is playing all 3 1 DP detachments from World Eaters. He has said, listen, I know the meta is to play fucking Berserker Warband again, or we play like the Brazen Engines Gortrack Onslaught build, where it's just hoping that Lord of Skulls can kill people with a gun. But I'm just going to play all of the little detachments. Who cares? Which is cool, but not for me, because I have to look up what these do, because I don't know. So Brazen Engines is, of course, the vehicle one. You, like, basically get to... oh, Jesus Christ. You basically get to battle shock people in engagement with your guys. The big thing, though, is that we are playing it for... Apoplectic Clarity. It lets your demon vehicles, when they are selected to attack, ignore ballistic skill, weapon skill, hit, and wound modifiers. So you can go into like bodyguard units, like Victor's Honor Guard or whatever, and you don't care. You can shoot it to cover, and you don't care. There's just a bunch of benefits. It's like, it's sick. Generally, really cool. We're also taking Butchers of Corn. Which is it the Terminator detachment? At the start of the fight phase, a friendly Terminator squad is engaged, make a Blessings of Corn roll, and use the results to activate 1 Blessing of Corn for that unit. Until the end of the phase, that Blessing of Corn is active for friendly Terminator units, squad units, in addition to any other Blessings of Corn that are currently active. Do we have any Terminators? No. Oh, we do. We have 2 units of 10. Let's fucking go. Sick. I did scroll by them too quickly. So these guys get up to 3 Blessings of Corn. So we could, like, sustain lethal, devastating versus infantry. Or reroll charges, sustain plus lethal, for example, across all of these. Or fight on death, sustain lethal. That's, like, the gold standard, where you're like, please, sir, let me fully buff my unit out and get the defensive effect as well. And this works in both fight phases. So you can, like, reroll charges, sustain, charge into melee, grant lethal, and then... you lose the last one on the next turn. Your opponent comes in and you roll and you gain fight on death. Sick. We are taking Gore-Stained Veterans, which is +1 weapon skill, so everyone hits on 2s. Sick. 2s and 3s on their chain fist, I guess. That's cool. I don't know what else this attachment does. We could give ranged attacks targeting the unit -1 damage. That's actually very problematic. I imagine there's a lot of factions in the game that are focusing very heavily on using 3 damage blast weapons to solve like heavy infantry or biker builds, you know, like Dark Angels and such. And having an access to a -1 damage in Terminators is huge. Focus Ferocity is +1 attack. Trophy for the Throne is +1 to wound. Jesus. Too bad you can't stack these, unfortunately. But you can do them on 2 different units. So we can have like 1 unit fighting infantry and they all attack like 5 times or 6 times or whatever. And then we have 1 unit fighting vehicles and they're all +1 to wound. And then they just kill everything. Okay. Sounds good. I'm in. And then the last attachment we're taking is Vessels of Wrath, which is the one where I guess they rewrote this one, right? This one used to be the it used to be the detachment where you would like choose a unit champion, and the unit champion would gain extra blessings of Khorne. It was sick, but they basically moved that effect to Chaos Terminators for the Butchers one. In this case, we're playing World Eater's character units. Each time they're selected to fight, the models in that unit gain either Cleave 1 or +1 AP. And we're taking 3 Khorne Winged Demon Princes. One of them has Gateways to Glory, which I think just gives him mobile. That's what it used to do anyway. Yep, mobile and +1 to charge. Okay, that's pretty good. Do we have a regular Demon Prince? We don't. We have so many good strats on so many different units, and we didn't take a regular Demon Prince. Who cares? The winged one's better. The Demon Prince of Khorne with wings in World Eaters is make enemies in engaged range take a Battleshock check. This is kind of helpful for World Eaters in specific because a lot of times you like army-wide engage people on round 2 or 3, especially with like all these Terminators, right? Because we're gonna rapid ingress the Terminators and like send them in. So you're getting 2 or 3 engagements a turn, and you don't want to be blown out by interrupt on a turn where you don't have fight on death active. So being able to like accidentally Battleshock people with all the Demon Princes is kind of a big deal. You also do damage when you normal move over people, which I guess they're move 14, so that probably happens. And then we have 8 attacks, and we can push them to AP 3. Only strength 8 though. Pretty interesting. Okay. Fascinating. So I guess like the Chaos Terminators are really just like midboard bullies. It's randomly a lot of shooting, right? Because they get the 4+ weapon scale, but additional attacks benefit that you get from a lot of the World Eater's guns, and they just hit like fucking trucks in the midboard. And then you have 3 of these guys that could just like run around, give themselves like reroll charges, potentially +1 to charge. So this dude can just like bang an accidental like 8-inch rerollable out of Deep Strike without having to burn a command reroll. And then you have like 2 other guys who can ramp and ingress and just like harass your opponent's backline. We have 2 individual Lords of Juggernaut as well. I guess also for the +1 EP or Cleave. Cleave's kind of annoying on him. Because let's say he charges a 10-man unit and he chooses Cleave from the Vessels of Wrath. He gets +4 attacks. He attacks 8 times with the Horn and 9 times with the Chainblade. And so he should kill, like, if you have just 10 morons, he should kill them almost certainly. Unless he's, like, misses a million attacks in his Horn or whatever. Because he's also getting critical effects. Don't forget, he's like probably sustained hits because of Blessings of Khorne. That's really cool. Wait, I love this list. What? These are just like the world's most consistent anti-utility units of all time. The biggest downside is that they are not infantry, so they can't hide. So unlike a lot of cases where you're like, I'm playing all these individual like fast infantry characters who are going to run around individually and like be annoying, he doesn't get that because he's just like a goober. So he doesn't like get the thing where he can like jump from hidden into a terrain feature and then like go behind a wall to get on the ground. He just gets shot. But like he might be fine. They aren't the easiest thing in the world to kill, right? They're 4% will save like 7 wounds. Yeah. It does require like some actual activation to kill him. So if he goes in and kills 10 idiots, right, a 50-point unit of 10 dudes, you'll have to dedicate like legitimate anti-tank to kill him, because he's not going to die to anti-infantry stuff. He's like T6. with 1 billion wounds. And even if you shoot like 2 las cannons at him, he's also probably not going to die because you have 4+ invulns. So you have to send in like a unit to charge him to kill him, and then he just 2-for-1s. Is Vessels of Wrath like absolutely goated? What are the stratagems? I'm learning so much about World Eater's like weird detachments. Chat. This is awesome. Scorn the Witch. 4+ Feel No Pain against mortal wounds. Okay. Punish the Craven. When you fall back, if you're engaged with the character, you must use Desperate Escape. If you're battle shocked, -1 from hazard rolls. So good for the Winged Demon Prince, because the Winged Demon Prince can battle shock you. If you don't unbattle shock, then you fail on 4s to Desperate Breakout. So he just does a bunch of automatic additional damage. Sick. Does that work on everything? Enemy unit engaged. So you can do it on non-infantry. And then Inspired to Infamy is excluding an epic hero. When a warlord's character is selected to fight, you gain +1 attack and +2 strength. Oh, so the Lord on Juggernaut can compound that. So they could attack. If you like cleave into a 10 model unit and use this, you get +6 attacks at strength 8. That's fucking nuts. What? This list is sick, chat. God damn. I want to play weird character World Eaters now. That's so cool. This is my favorite list, I think, of the show so far. I'm calling it out now. This is my favorite. Can mobile units charge through terrain? They can. Anytime they move, they ignore dense terrain features. Is the effect of mobile. That came up in a game over the weekend, actually. Somebody was like, I don't think you can ignore mobile on charges, or ignore dense terrain on charges, but mobile is literally just ignore dense terrain, period, every time you make a movement. Mobile models can move horizontally through terrain features. Full stop. That's the rule. Sick. Pretty cool, chats. They basically like all counted as like the 2-inch terrain feature stuff. The only defense is the chunky base size. Yeah, for sure. That said, it's like kind of, it's difficult to position. I guess you can set up a situation where, like, because their base size is so big, you can actually wall screen. But a lot of times they can go around, and they're almost certainly just unlocking army-wide charge rolls most of the time, right? If they're trying to bang like these like 15 or 16-inch like hits into things, so that they're trying to roll 5 or 6 or 7-inch charges on the individual characters, you definitely try to fish for the reroll charges blessing, especially because your Terminators like not only really like it, but also can still unlock an additional damage output enhancement later on. So you don't even need to necessarily baby the Terminators when it comes to your Blessings of Khorne. So you're like way more likely to choose like sustained hits plus charge rolls or something. Man, that's sick. What a cool fucking list. All right, what people are talking about the French World Eaters list? Do we want to talk about that? Oh, I even have that one noted. That was the next one on my list, chat. That's so good. Oh, excuse me, not the French one. Which
Drew
one?
Lytle
We just talked about the French one.
2281 donated
GCC?
$2 through Super Chat. Blood Angels have an interesting vehicle list.
Sick. Where is it? Please tell me. Titanic Knights don't get mobile. Yeah, Super Heavy Walker is different than mobile. Is this the list that we want to talk about? No. That wasn't the one I had noted. The Australia. Interesting. And Carmine Spear Tip. Okay. So this is David Kerr running Headhunter Task Force. So Headhunter is the weird one where you get vehicle aces So you select a number of vehicles from your army to become a tank ace. It gets auto 6 advances. Each time you shoot in your shooting phase, if you didn't advance, you get reroll damage. The other thing is that they can then take enhancements. So we can take like a Astartes tank ace, for example, which can grant assaults to things within 6. So you can get this like crazy, this like they basically these like roving bands of vehicles that can wander around the table. I guess like Blood Angels 2 have a little bit of synergy with this because they have ball predators, which are largely assault weapons, naturally. So being able to auto 6 advance those guys is cool. So Commander Dante with the big Sanguinary Guard squad. That's for Sanguine and Carmine Spear Tip. We have a Captain with Jump Pack with a Sanguinary Guard squad. Captain with Jump Pack with a Sanguinary Guard squad. Land Raider Redeemer. He has a Astartes tank ace, so he gets the assault on things within 6, and then he auto 6 advances and can fire his flamers at things. We then have a Vindicator with Firestorm Coordinators. That's sustained hits 1 for the vehicle. We have a Combi Weapon Lieutenant for utility. 2 Ball Predators. Pretty sweet. And a Scout Squad. So the Ball Predators just have tank ace, so they can advance and shoot. Or excuse me, they can advance auto 6. They naturally have assault weapons, so they don't need the other guys. And then, by the way, this fucking Headhunter art is sick. I've never seen this before. This looks cool as fuck. What? It's just a bunch of Black Templars things shooting guns. That's really cool. Neat. Let's get in Carmine Spear Tip for a sec. Got Sanguinary Guard can fall back, shoot, and charge. Do we have any upgrades? No. So we don't care about upgrades. We can give them impact attacks. Oh, excuse me, chat. I'm going to sneeze. Woo! I apologize. Blinding Blurs of Vengeance. Gives them stealth. Okay. And then also a reactive move when you fall back from them. That's really good. Reactive move is kind of why you're playing them. But also fall back and charge on big units is good too. Fascinating. So just a Land Raider Redeemer and a bunch of Ball Predators that can all run up the table and fire a billion 2 damage flamer shots into people. That's kind of cool. I like that. That's good for... I think there's a lot of, like, specifically, 2-ish wound infantry armies that just fall apart to that, right? If you're taking, like, a bunch of... as long as you don't, like, break T12, that army's just going to absolutely ruin you. If you're taking a bunch of, like, medium infantry that's, like, T4 or 5, you're just super dead. You're just running into mass, like, unstoppable levels of Overwatch. Even if you have, like, anti-Overwatch mechanics, so you have, like, Agent of Discord or whatever, where you can tax their stratagems, doesn't matter. Doesn't make a difference to them. They're just going to shoot you anyway. Cool. All right, Chance. Headhunter's a fun detachment. Yeah. We streamed that like really interesting Headhunter list with the Astrayas that unfortunately ran into Sisters and then got like the absolute shit diced out of it. That was at Richmond Open this past year. Very sad because an Astrayas with tank ace is sick. That thing just goes for fucking days and then just blasts something off the table. That was with Gilliman too, so you could double oath and you could like shoot the Astrayas into something and kill it, and then target oath into something else and shoot it with a Vindicator and kill it. That list was really cool, and it was unfortunate that game ended as it's such a travesty. R.I.P. All right, Chance. Any other ones that we want to take a peek at? Triple Mutilator Chaos Space Marines from France. I did see that they had a very interesting CSM loadout. No. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm on the wrong tab. Creations of Bill. So Benjamin Stroh over here. running Creations of Bile. This is it's been a while since Creations of Bile have been meta, so some people may never have seen this army. This was for the longest time maybe the single most like consistent aggressive infantry army in the entire game. Through like a lot up until maybe late last year, Creations, if you wanted to play melee infantry, Creations of Bile or where you ended up. It was just like, it was so aggressive and so like your possessed units were so strong. Basically you roll 2d6 at the start of the game. If you have Fabius Bile and he's your warlord, you re-roll them. The results you get are either +1 attack, +2 move, +1 weapon skill, +1 toughness, +1 strength, +1 ballistic skill. And so a lot of the times what you would do is you would take units that had like really, really strong like mid-range profiles, kind of like jack of all trades, because any buff to their profile would push them out like up the ladder in terms of that one specific characteristic. So like possess were great because it was like a bunch of 2 damage melee attacks. So +1 attack is good because you're 2 damage. +1 weapon skill or strength is good because you're like you're like 3+ weapon skill, strength 5 or strength 6. So like one push up there changes their output in a lot of profiles pretty well. Their toughness 5, so pushing up to toughness 6 is a big deal. Their move like 10, I think, or something, and move 9. So +2 move was huge because you would just extend your threat range super far. And then you have stratagems that can give you things like advance and charge, right? So you could get like just advance and charge for a command point. You could get regenerating models for a command point. So sometimes you would lose a model in a 3-wound heavy infantry unit who was like +1 toughness and all this stuff. You revive a dude in front of you. They have +2 movement from the detachment ability, and you would advance and charge them. So your threat range compared to your base profile is like +7 inches. And you would just cross the table and then jail your opponent with all of these 3-wound idiots. Super duper spooky. So it's kind of cool to see it back, especially now that all the other cast Space Marine builds have been nerfed a million times. Fabulous Bill with the Legionary Squad. Kravik Morn with the Terminator Squad. I mean, it kind of a lot of times too is like the other benefit that you can get is if you take mid-range or you take 1 or 2 units with guns. So a lot of times you saw Havocs, or I guess in this case Terminators, because there is that one weird like +1 ballistic skill enhancement you could get, and you never wanted that to be rolled and then or like re-rolled into and got no benefit from, right? So having 1 or 2 gun units was pretty good, especially Chaos Terminators here because they can fish for criticals. If they're hitting on 2s and you're firing like lethal hits or whatever into a high toughness unit, you just full reroll all your bolter shots to try to get more lethal hits. We have a Cultist Mob, a Legionary Squad, Chaos Rhino, Felgor Beastman, okay. Triple Mutilators, and then there's the Possessed. Yeah, 20 Possessed Guardsman Squad. Mutilators are interesting. That's fascinating. I guess like Mutilators follow a lot of these trends. So there's T7. So they're move 5, which is bad, but if you push that up to move 7, they're relatively fast. Move 7, advance and charge on a unit that can deep strike, so we can drop them from the sky is not too bad. They're toughness 7, so if you roll +1 toughness, they go to toughness 8, which is a big breakpoint because right, your strength 6 or your strength 4 starts to wound on 6s instead of 5s. So a lot of like the like high volume infantry sweeping starts to not do anything to you. And then they can choose their attack profile. So whatever buffs you get to attack, you can kind of choose an attack profile that synergizes the best with that. So like if you get +1 strength, and you hit T12, you could go to strength 13, or you hit almost any other profile, you can go from strength 9 to strength 10. So that in a lot of cases gives you +1 to wound against vehicles or high toughness things. +1 attack literally adds 50% to the damage output of your Thunderous Blow profile. So that's pretty spooky. I kind of like this chat. And then they just do like impacted mortals, yeah. I think that unit's pretty cool. That's neat. I think there's gonna be a lot of people who are surprised by like a bunch of T8 Terminators running at you. 15 wounds, so 165 points gets you 15 wounds, potentially at toughness 8. That are potentially like also 15 attacks with sustained or lethal. 15 attacks at AP 3 damage or 21 attacks at AP 2/1 damage. Somewhere between strength 6 and 7. I don't know, chat. That's actually pretty spooky to me. And then having access to advance and charge means they actually get in. And then the possessed squad, double possessed is like kind of good too, because as I said, the possessed have the like single greatest synergy with the detachment ability. Like they're right in the middle. They're move 9, they could go to 11. They're T6, they could go to 7. Oh, I said they were T5 earlier. That's wrong. They're strength 5, they could go to strength 6. They're 4 attacks, they could go to 5. So like any buff, melee buff you get for possessed besides +1 ballistic scale is really good for that unit. Neat. That's a neat list. Hopefully we see Creations of Bile back on the menu for Chaos Space Marines. It's like the most straight up Chaos Space Marine. I mean, a lot of Chaos Space Marine builds are just like, I'm going to play normal 40k and just out over muscle you, which is why they do get kind of tough once they are once you nudge the lever in any direction, right? Or if you play like unreleased Pact-Bound Zealots, or you play like Defilers, or the Fellhammer Siege Host list or whatever, where it's like as soon as you nudge the bar too far, then their ability to outmuscle you just outmuscles you without doing anything. Like they don't have to work; they just get those dubs. But Pact-Bound Zealots is just like Creations of Bile is just like, hey, I'm gonna play melee and I'm gonna out melee you, and that's it. That's what's happening. That's what's gonna happen. What are you gonna do about it? I like it's as an archetype. I think it's fun. I think it's fun and cool. They can also defend this list and pick search and destroy maps. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's another good point that I didn't mention at the start, but I should have. Is that in the team format, you can pick your. I actually don't know if WTC lets you pick your layout, or if the layout is predetermined. I know that the team pairing process, I think in the event packet, is that the defending player picks the layout. So when you go through the pairing process, one player is the defender. They put their list forward essentially to begin with, and the other team responds to it with 2 lists, and the defender chooses one of those lists to play against. The defender then chooses the layout you play on, but the attacker chooses the I forget how it works. It used to be the attacker chooses the terrain, but now the terrain is just like predetermined based on layout. So maybe the attacker chooses layout. I forget. Either way, there is you can change the terrain like that you're playing on, so that you can try to you could play like skewer your lists that are going to defend early that have more control over exactly what terrain they're playing over. It might be too slow for singles matchups. Well, if you hit the +2 move, you're moving 11 with possessed with advance and charge. The downside is that like you're kind of controllable, but the whole idea, I imagine if you played it in singles, you would probably cut like one of the melee bricks to take some more utility. So you would take like more legionaries or like smaller chosen or something, or smaller units that could skirmish. Even red corsairs actually might be sick. So you can clear screening units and infiltrators and stuff. What you don't want to do is like have to run 20 possessed into fucking 10 commandos or something. But a lot of times what you'll do is you'll throw possessed away on trade down in order to create space to then ingress all the mutilators. And then you hit them with all that stuff. That's usually what will happen, I think. Yeah, it is in fact very fast. And especially for 11th edition, where a lot of the threat ranges are compressed quite a bit because of how the terrain and the missions work. Like possessed being able to be hidden basically on their defense, like on their front line. And if you don't have enough beef to kill the whole unit, they'll just start reanimating, and they can like close the gap between 2 deployment zones almost instantaneously. Even just between the 2 deployment zones, it's a 13-inch, I guess, like advance plus charge roll, which is a lot, but they're going to stage and they're going to have a turn to set up, which means that usually they can reach your deployment zone by round 2 on a below average roll, probably. Were there any Drukhari lists? There were, chat. I will grab it. We will head on over to Hungary. I mostly want to talk about this because I think this attachment's cool. So Botond Blasovsky is running Drazo Escobar. That's good. That's good, chat. It's a Cabalite cartel. So this is the hired blades detachment. I think this attachment rules. So basically, you choose a contract unit at the start of the first battle round, and you get a bonus against that unit's keyword. So infantry or mounted, you gain sustained hits. Characters, you get precision. Monsters or vehicles, you gain lethals. And if you ever kill the contract target, the world fucking ends. So a lot of times what it is like, it's just invasion fleet, where it's like, hey, choose a keyword, you get a bonus against it. However, one of those units is about to be fucked, because if you ever kill it, you use Taken Alive, which is a 1 command point stratagem. It's used in the fight phase. It gives you +1 to hit. So baseline, good strat, right? However, if you destroy your contract target with that activation, your opponent's entire army takes a Battleshock check. Then, you use in your next command phase, enemies without number. If your contract target is destroyed, you gain a bunch of pain tokens because you get paid, and you choose a new contract target. So, and then you can you can duplicate the effect essentially. So, we streamed a first event of the edition, where I don't think people had totally understood this interaction, and it was Genestealer Calls, the Genestealer Call player. Of course, everything was going to be sustained against infantry because it's Genestealer Calls. They have a trillion infantry units. And the Drukhari player, because I believe they choose their contract target at the start of the first battle round, so they get to see where the deployment is. There's a unit of infiltrating Genestealers right up in the middle of the table. And the Drukhari player goes, I will take out a contract on those Genestealers. And now the Genestealer Call player has a choice. They can either get use out of their Genestealers. They probably kill some witches. They kill a unit. They get some work done. However, they then donate the contract to the other player. Or they can just lose a Genestealer unit. He just runs into the corner and he cowers for the rest of the game. The correct answer is to protect your contract target. Because if you ever lose him, it's fucking game over. It's GG immediately. So in that case, the Genestealer player ran the Genestealers in, I think got heroically intervened by a Tallow squad, lost the Genestealer unit. The Cabalite player then took out a new contract because that triggers on their command phase. They now have perfect information. So instead of having a turn where the opponent gets to react to what your contract target is, you now get to totally dictate who the contract target is. They take out a contract on the other infiltrating Genestealer unit. They kill it. They go to the next turn, complete the contract, take out a new contract on fucking 5 Flamer Acolyte hybrids. They just do that every turn. And if those are ever killed by a unit that's taking them alive, it forces a battle shock on every Genestealer unit, including ones in reserve. Fucking brutal, dude. I think by the end of the game, the Drukhari player had something like 45 pain tokens. Every pain token ability was permanently unlocked for the entire game. That's the downside of not playing against this detachment. If you don't have matchup knowledge about how this works, GG, dude. It's so bad. Very cool detachment. Otherwise, honestly, not too bad, right? Gives you like sustained or lethal hits on your army, and you get like a bunch of good stratagems to use on like hired blades, which are some of your best like combat units in the faction. So in this case, you're playing Webway All on a Archon with an Incubi squad that gives Deep Strike and Rapid Ingress for free. It doesn't duplicate Rapid Ingress, but you can just, you do it for free. We have a Hand of the Archon, with Leech Bite Plate, which is, you get a 3+ save, and you can regenerate yourself back to full for a pain token. We have Drazar with the Incubi squad as another melee unit. Succubus with Periaptive Torments. We're taking Exhibition of Slaughter as our second, so we do get, Ignore. Overwatch. And then we get to advance and do actions and stuff for witches, and as well as the bonuses for witches. Unfortunately, Camp Light Cartel doesn't, I don't think, do anything for your witch units. It only affects Cabal and Blades of Hire. So it is what it is. Lady Malice is in here mostly as a command point tax. She can hop out of a Venom and then like tax all of your command points for a turn and then just hop back in the Venom. It's very annoying. She can't like she doesn't then really debuff like offensive stratagems because she's inside the vehicle, but she can basically permanently make it so that all of your interrupts, your defensive stratagems, your like counter assaults, all are taxed. At any point you need to, she could just make that happen. She doesn't even need a unit or anything. She just needs a transport. We have a Witch Squad, 3 Venoms, a Chronos, Mandrakes, double Ravagers, which are Cabal keyworded, so they get the benefits, plus double Reaver Squads, which again are Spectacle of Slaughters, so they can get, or Exhibition of Slaughter, excuse me. Plus 3 Scourges, which are Hired Blades, so they get all the bonuses as well. So there you go, chat. There's a Drukhari army for you. I think this combination of detachments, of course, it's not as good as the like Spectacle of Spite stuff, but it's super sick. I don't know. Melee Malice also gives redeploys. Oh, that's true. Yeah, for sure. What about Spain's Custodian list? There's some factions that I didn't take like too deep of a look at because a lot of their builds right now are just like pretty straightforward. This one does look interesting. We did take Trajann Valoris, which is sweet. Butlers of the Corpse God. It's Lines of the Emperor plus Silent Hunters. We did take 2 Witch Seeker units, so we actually get a benefit from Silent Hunters. But Silent Hunter's Disruption? It is. Oh, it's Recon. So we didn't even take it for the disposition. But we probably took Disruption. So a lot of times you would take like Might of the Moritoi to take and Hold, I think. Is that right? Is that what it is? I bet a cat visit. Yeah, Might of the Moritoi gives you take and hold. So a lot of times that's what you play because take and hold's pretty straightforward for Custodes to do. But in this case, I think we probably wanted to take Disruption in order to fulfill the team slot. We're taking Trajann because we could use Gilded Champion to get multiple instances of his ability out, which is cool. Shield Captain with Armada Mortis. Inquisitor Draxus with the Custodian Guard Squad. Welcome back, Draxus. Inquisitor, it's been too long. This combination was so ubiquitous in Custodes lists for like 3 full years that eventually they just nerfed Draxus into the ground. I don't even think it was like that good. Like 280 points of this unit is a fucking lot, but it is like 32 damage gunshots, which is pretty good. With wound rerolls. We have a Blade Champion with Superior Creation, plus another Custodian Guard Squad. John Eagle Jetbike with Fierce Conqueror for extra attacks. With the Virtus Praetor Squad, Alaris Custodians, double Witch Seekers. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Taking Trajann Valoris back is pretty cool. That guy's been gone for too long there, Chance. The big thing is, of course, like he goes insane because he's inside a Custodian Guard Squad. So he can gain wound rerolls. He can give him +1 to wound. So he wins like everything in the game on 4s, and then full wound rerolls plus like sustained hits or whatever. So like getting strength 10 3 damage on a non-Admona Mortis melee profile is kind of a big deal. And then also he can get his what is it, +6 attacks? It used to be double attacks. Yeah, it's double attacks on his Watcher once per game, and then you could pay a command point to get it back for a future turn. I assume that's not an epic hero. I think I have to look that up every time because we don't see Trajann too often. Yeah, the Adeptus Custodes character model that uses a once per game ability, you get it to use it an additional time. So he gets 2 activations out of a 12 attack, +1 to wound, full rerolling, or full wound rerolling, 3 damage weapon. This man one-shots like knights and stuff. The awkward part is that you actually didn't see him for a long time because it was a level of damage output that Custodes like simply didn't need. So you'd be like, how come nobody plays Trajann Valoris? And they're like, well, I could kill like your Land Raider 2 times instead of only 1.5 times, but it doesn't matter. So who cares? He used to be able to get his 2+ invulnerable save at shooting, and that was a big deal. You play him like by himself, and then he would just like wander around the table and be invincible because he would get 2 instances of a 2+ invuln save. But now it's 5 phase only, so Sag. I'm gonna see guard from Bulgaria. Okay. So this is Abhuman Auxiliaries, Mechanized Assault. Got a Tempestus Command Squad with Yarick, cool, and a Tempestus Silent Squad. Or I guess like the command squads are all support, right? No, it's just that Scions get the double attachment rule. Commissar, just an individual Commissar, interesting. Gaunt's Ghost, an Ogren Bodyguard, and a Tech Priest Engine Seer. We have a Centaur RSV, a Chimera, a Bulgren Squad, Cadian Recon, Catachan Heavy Weapons ×2, double Kazarkin, Greek Combat Engineers ×2, Ogren Squad, and a Stormlord. Let's fucking go. the Mechanized Assault, I think, was where I theorized like Guard could go because their like OG Grizzled Company builds weren't very good anymore. Like it's not necessary. Like you're shooting into -1 ballistic skill a lot of times, so playing like a lot of 4+ ballistic skill tanks isn't that great unless you run Hellhounds. And even then, you're taxing yourself 100 points to run a tank that's kind of mediocre otherwise. But this detachment's really good. It's just +1 to wound when you disembark a transport. So you can play a lot of stuff in your like Centaur RSVs or whatever, and then you jump out with a bunch of like chimeras and things. You jump out with like scouting Kazarkin units that shoot 1 billion times. They give themselves orders. You like drop in Gaunt's Ghost to double order them, and they go pretty hard. And I think everything they have is just, reroll hits and wounds if you target an enemy on an objective marker, if you disembark a transport. It's a lot of like stuff based on transports, of course. You can move D6 inches after you disembark, so you can like get yourself within rapid fire range really easily. And then Abhuman, I think gives your commissars the ability to issue take aim. So you can get your Bulgren to actual like ballistic skill 3, and then also you can give them the full rerolls from the other detachment, right? From Mechanized Assault. And Ogren, not Bulgren, I should say Ogren. Actually shoot like 1 million times. So Ogren are this like interesting unit that's kind of slept on. Okay. I don't necessarily want to say they're slept on, but they're really cheap, right? So there's between 60 and 120 points. You get 6 dudes with 3 wounds apiece. They have a feel no pain baked in, 6 have feel no pain. So they're kind of inconsistent for heavy infantry sweepers to kill. I mean, their saves suck, but that's why we have them for like basically free. However, they do shoot 6 times for 2 damage. The downside, of course, is their ballistic skill is kind of mediocre, and they can't receive orders. But as soon as you give them orders, and you can give them +1 to hit, and you can give them hit and wound rerolls, and they jump in, and they jump out of a Stormlord, then now we're shooting 1 million attacks at like 3, 5, 1, 2. Like, it's 30 shots for a 120 point unit. That's shooting probably hitting like. You're shooting 36 times, probably hitting like 33 of them, right? And then wound rerolling, even into winning on 5s, they're probably hitting you like 18 AP 1/2 damage saves. I think that the Stormlord removes the necessity for a lot of that stuff. At the end of your opponent's movement phase, you can re-embark. Oh, it doesn't have fire support. Sorry, chat. I thought for a second it had fire support. But you could just recycle into the Stormlord. And then, of course, we have the Tech Priest Engines here to give him an invuln save. I don't know what the Sacred Unguents do. Oh, it gives reroll hits to the transport. Sick. Oh, excluding Titanic. So that's for the Centaur RSV. So we can shoot all of the guns inside the Centaur RSV out of the firing deck. So we can put like a bunch of Catachan heavy weapon squads inside, and they can fire las cannons out and they get full hit rerolls. Neat. So that's like a lot of that's a bunch of really good damage. The Stormlord himself actually shoots kind of hard these days. I don't know if there's any orders for him. Can Yarrick issue orders to Titanic? He does have a Titan. So it would kind of be weird if he didn't. Yeah, he can. Sick. And then so he's just vibing. And he can give +1 to hit to the Stormlord, so we can be hitting on 4s regardless, basically. And then they shoot, I want to say it's something like 32 damage ranged attacks. The strength and AP are kind of low, but you don't really care at that point. You're just firing into random bullshit and wiping it out. It's 5 twin heavy bolters, so it's 15 sustain 1 twin linked, and then the Vulcan mega bolter is 20 more, not twin linked, but strength 6. So it's 35 total 2 damage attacks and 4 las cannon shots. That's a lot. There's quite a bit. Don't let it shoot you. Even shooting into like T11, right? Or like T9, it's going to kill probably. But T11, so it's winning on 5s here. And it's 6s twin linked here. So they're kind of equivalent profiles. Is enough damage. You will probably kill a vehicle, right? Which is sweet. The change from AP or from cover being a change to ballistic skill to AP characteristics means all this AP 1 stuff actually does damage to people, which is nice. Pretty cool. Does Stormlord give anything special for firing deck? No, it just has one. That's about it. You could just firing deck a million stuff off the top, and that's about what's going on. It gives you like more ability to use it, I guess, because you can get back into it, and it gives you a place because you can +1 ballistic skill the whole vehicle. It gives you can like centralize your orders essentially. So like if Yarrick is giving +1 to hit to the Stormlord, which he's probably doing anyway, then it also affects the stuff inside, and you don't need additional orders. But Mechanized Assault really wants you to disembark from your transports, so you're probably like disembarking and re-embarking the Ogryn squad, and or like some amount of the Tempestus Scions and the other stuff, and then the rest of your army is like just vibing. It does go Bert. I played against this thing once in 10th edition. It was such a joke in 10th. And now it's like actually legit. I'm like, oh boy. These profiles are not bad anymore. Pretty cool. Ooh, chat. Good stuff. I think I'm flagging a little bit here, chat, so I might wrap things up in a moment. I guess there's a couple things I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up entirely. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the more like meta armies. There's the one that's going around with the Raven Guard. This is one that I kind of expect to see played in other armies. Or in other lists, in other like contexts, not necessarily specifically for WTC stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if this gets played otherwise. Let's look at NAS's version from Team England. He's running Librarius Conclave plus Shadowmark Talon. This is not the only version of this list. I think there's a bunch of them. One of them is it's a Phobos Lieutenant with an Incursor squad, so you can get shoot and scoot with this unit, so they can move after shooting. We have a Librarian and Terminator armor with celerity, so advance and do stuff, plus a Terminator assault squad. We have another Librarian and Terminator armor plus a regular Terminator squad. So a big thing here is that what we're going to try to do is we have up down for free thanks to Aethan Sean, because we can use Return to the Shadows for 0. And then you can, with a lot of these units, you could just like the Terminators especially, you just light up your Oath of Moment target they can just deep strike because they go into strat reserve. They have deep strike naturally, so you could just deep strike the normal way. They also have temporal quarter, so they can also up down themselves without using Ethan Chan's ability. But in any case, they drop down and they can get like within 12 inches of you, so they're firing 40 Stormbolter shots and 2 Cyclone Missile Launchers and a Smite, and then they get full hit rerolls against their Oath target. So even firing into cover, they're going to hand you enough attacks with sustained hits and +1 to hit and from their datasheet ability that they're going to be doing some pretty serious damage. If you shoot from outside 12, you could use Strike from the Shadows to give them +1 ballistic skill and +1 AP, so they hit on 2s, even shooting into cover. And their AP 1 with all their shooting. The downside, of course, is that they get half as many shots from that because they want to get rapid fire. We have Ethan Chan to facilitate that. Double Intercessor squads, pretty sweet. Centurion Devastator squad, this is the other unit that's going to use the up-down. So we can have one of those units Temporal Quarter, the other one you use the free strat on. They can drop around the table, and then we can give them +1 AP. They don't really care, and +1 ballistic skill with the same strat. Let me just pull this strat up. So we can go to, excuse me. It's called Stunning Fusillade. They changed the OG version is in Vanguard Spearhead, and it's called Strike from the Shadows. But they changed it for the very Vanguard one because they like to be unique. It gives you +1 ballistic skill, and it gives you +1 AP as long as you target something 12 inches away. And if you kill something, they take a battle shock check. The big thing here is that the Devastator squad gets reroll 1s to hit innately, full rerolls if you're on an objective. So you up them, you drop them off a table edge, you shoot at something even in cover, you're ignoring the cover, or if they're not in cover, then you are hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s innately for your own ability. Your anti-vehicle 3 and +1 AP. So you're 3 shots each, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 2s, shooting into a vehicle for 3 flat damage. The downside, of course, and this is like where the team format comes in, you might take las cannons with these guys if you don't know you're in a team format, because the las cannons are just like, they're better into a wider variety of targets, lower attack volume, and less consistent, but you don't rely on the anti-vehicle 2+ that the grav cannons have. However, because you can massage your matchups a little bit, you can put this into an army with you talk about like all the land raiders, for example, in that Black Templars army. This unit probably kills one of them, for example. So you play into an army that has a bunch of these like really high resilience vehicles. Suddenly this unit's just dumping so many saves into them that they're going to die even through a lot of defensive technology. And it's really good. I don't know. The other thing too is that even if you don't have a lot of those targets, basically shooting 18 3-damage shots is good in a lot of other situations. So like the Chaos Space Marines we just talked about, this unit will kill most of one of those possessed bricks. Actually, maybe the whole possessed brick if you have the Centurion missile launchers going too, because it's another D3 shots, D3 damage blast weapon. So especially shooting into big units of like Terminators or something, it's so many attacks that they're going to do some ding. So they're good into like heavy infantry, and they're good into like high toughness vehicles. Inceptor is very good for the up down because they can go 6 inches away to get recon points very early. They're also pretty good shooting at the Oath target because they can get sustained hits too. And if we use this stratagem, they hit on 2s. So they can hit on 2s and then re-roll to fish for additional sustains. So they average like 21 hits out of 18 shots. Or excuse me, it's a small unit. So it's like 12 hits out of 9 shots, I think. Reaver squad for some utility plus the scout squad. Not taking Cave and Trike, which is interesting, but just focusing on the Terminators. It does highlight the most hilarious thing that happens with Raven Guard, which is that every time they print a Raven Guard thing, it is always better to use it on heavy infantry rather than light or medium. Whereas Raven Guard, like conceptually, and I will always call this out because I think it's just the funniest like narrative dissonance in the entire game. Raven Guard, like conceptually, are like the special operations, like light, small teams that are inserted to do specific things. And so you feel like you want to be like, all right, we're gonna play some Reavers for melee, we're gonna play some Eliminators, we're gonna play some like Phobos squads. And then every time they print one of their supplements, it's always better to use any of their abilities on fucking Centurions. And it's happened every time they've ever printed like the Vanguard stuff for Space Marines, and it's so fucking funny. It makes me laugh. Yeah. It'd be cool to talk about Tyranids for a sec, I guess. Purely for my own edification. But I'd have to find one that's like specific. I guess there's like a really interesting. Oh, Eric Lathuris is playing Synaptic Nexus. It's kind of fun. So from Team Australia, he always plays weird, cool stuff. He's playing a Last Rip Tyranid Prime with Hormagaunts. Last Rip Tyranid Prime with Hormagaunts. I'm gonna give these guys a go. I think the big giant Hormagaunt bricks with the Tyranid Primes. That's my next list. I haven't played them before, and I think I want to do it. Dirge Heart of Karis on one of them, so he gets a Aura of Muslim Leadership. That's a big deal if you're trying to unlock Screamer Killer or like Battleshock synergies. So he gives a leadership penalty. You can have Death Leaper give a leadership penalty, and then you can shoot at something and force a Battleshock at -3 with a Screamer Killer, and then that turns on a Neurolictor buff. The downside is that a lot of the like super high damage combos in Tyranids rely on that combination of effects, and it costs you like 400 points of utility to be able to unlock it. So it's like they didn't really think it through. They're like, guys, what if Tyranids could unlock this like crazy amount of Battleshock, like overlapping Battleshock buffs, except that it requires that you spend like a quarter of your army just to buff yourself. We have another one, the Psychostatic Disruption, which I believe is a anti-Deep Strike Aura. Death Leaper for the -1 leadership. A Power of the Hive Mind Neuro Tyrant with no attached Zoanthropes. Goat. Power of the Hive Mind's cool. It's +1 AP and Strength on his Flamer. So he goes to Strength 6 AP 2. So his Flamer's pretty likely to kill like 5 Space Marine bodies if he rolls well in the attack volume. So he's just like an Overwatch threat that's then going to force the Shadow in the Warp Battleshock at a higher penalty. Double Maliceptor. Triple Mawlock is interesting. That's more Battleshock tests that we can force. So they force a Battleshock check on a 5+ on everything within 12 inches of them when they arrive from reserve. So we can run this dude up with the intention of charging with him, and then we can drop 3 Mawlocks within 12 inches of that unit and force 3 Battleshock checks at -1. Or force 3 opportunities to Battleshock at -1. Each of those also deals D3 mortals. We have 2 Neurolictors to give +1 to wound, and then a Tyrann effects with Acid Spray. This feels very, very pointed to kill like infantry spam stuff. We have like access to +1 to hit and rerolls on the Last Rip Primes, so we can give them reroll once they hit and wound, and we can use the detached ability to get +1 to hit, so they can be hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s with sustain, into a specific target, which actually like puts this unit into killing a lot of stuff. It's not going to kill high toughness stuff very easily unless we get the Battleshock on them for +1 to wound. But it will kill like a million little units. The Tyrann effects also is like another Overwatch threat that's super disgusting. So we have 2 like or 3 big, because we have Stormlord, big like super heavy 2 damage flamers. So there's like a ton of Overwatch everywhere. So if you're trying to play like Eldar or Dark Eldar, any of these like recon lists, they're just gonna fall apart against this. It's like so difficult to survive the end of movement phase against this army. And then a lot of its units can 2 for 1 because they can shoot and melee, or they can melee 2 things like these units can. That feels like specifically pointed to some like particular enemies. That's cool. Any thoughts on the ratio of force disposition? I mean, by definition, it's going to be kind of even because you are required to take an even number. It's likely that disruption gets pulled down. Yeah. Like, so here's the force disposition ratio, chat. Here, I'm going to pull it up here. And it is exactly what I would expect, which is that the more consistent. What's interesting is that Purge the Foe's low, but I think as people have realized, Purge the Foe is kind of bad against people who know what they're doing. And the WTC, you expect that people know what they're doing, right? However, disruption's like always bad. So, and armies or teams have to take every disposition once and duplicate 3 of them, which means the most consistent dispositions, which are the ones that don't require interaction with your opponent, are the ones that you take 3 of. If I had to guess, I might have maybe guessed that reconnaissance was taken over as the 3rd or the 4th slot instead of purge, but I understand why. And obviously, like, Reconnaissance has a lower play rate and Purge has a higher play rate than Disruption. But Disruption, there's no way that anyone is going out of their way to take more than one instance of Disruption. That disposition's fucking awful. Especially in a universe where Purge is becoming less playable. If you want to play into a Purge meta, Disruption's pretty good, but in every other instance, Disruption's bad. So people are only playing it because, like, maybe they can like sandwich a Purge enemy with Disruption and have like a slightly better matchup, or and also they have to take at least one. But as you expect less Purge people to play, you're less incentivized to take more than one Disruption player. So I don't know. Like, it's pretty straightforward. All right, chat. I think I'm sleepy now. So I think it's going to be all the WTC talk for today. Thanks everyone for coming hang out and watching with me. I don't know if I have too much else scheduled coming up here. We'll probably be live tomorrow with something, but I don't think I have any games scheduled until this weekend. I do have an invitational game scheduled on Sunday currently, but otherwise I don't have a lot of streaming. So we'll probably be live over on Twitch to some extent. I also believe that I should have my video about the fight phase out this week as well, which will be good. They should rework Disruption. I agree. I 100% agree. It's not too like difficult too. Like, the dispositions generally are pretty close. It's just that, like, you just like tweaking a couple of the matchups, I think, would help. And I think they tried to do a thing which I don't necessarily think was like very well. I don't think it's a very good idea in general, which is that they tried to make the dispositions a little bit of a rock paper scissors. So they gave some of them, and maybe I'm assigning too much intentionality to Games Workshop, but it seems like they tried to make like some detachments have a very, very minor improvement in their matchup against specific other dispositions, so that each one had like a predator and a prey. But the problem is that when you have no control over what your disposition or your matchup is in each of those situations, then you just feel really bad, because if any one of those dispositions is played even slightly more than normal, which is of course going to happen because people, like, some playstyles are more in vogue or some factions are more in vogue, which have greater access to those dispositions, then other dispositions just become unplayable. And that's basically what happens with Disruption, where it's like, hey, Purge the Foe is a pretty good matchup, but I suck into everyone else. I just have to literally do twice as much work into everyone else. So I'm not going to play it if I can't be guaranteed I'm going to play Purge the Foe. It's unfortunate to me because, like, I really want to play Subterranean Assault, but I fucking can't. I can't do it, dude. The Disruption, so many of the Disruption matchups are just so bad. I just don't want to. I don't want to do it. Too bad. I don't know. It's just an anti-demon situation again, yeah, for sure. And it would. I think. Here's what I think, chat. Here's my opinion. I would like to see, and I imagine this is probably something that as the community gets more used to the new Disruption system, although, like, to some extent, who knows, it might be the case where, like, some people are like, the Games Workshop's like, no, this is too complicated, we're not going to do this. But here, I would love to see 3 DP detachments get 2 dispositions, and your list has access to all the dispositions that are from the assembly of their detachments. Then when you get to the table, before you do setup, you look at your opponent's disposition and you, in secret, choose one and then reveal it. And I think that would be very cool, because suddenly you can be like, oh, he does have Purge and it looks like he's built for Purge. Now I'm going to try to choose a Disruption. But there's like counterplay where the Purge player can play something different, and suddenly it's like an interesting dynamic, and you have to, like, it incentivizes you to have, like, matchup knowledge beforehand. Plus, it means that if you ever get tired of a particular disposition matchup, you can just play a different disposition. That's a problem, like a complaint. Probably the number one complaint that people have of the format right now is that I oftentimes go to games and I play 3 of the same mission 3 times in a row, and I get really tired of it. Well, if we allowed people to select dispositions beforehand, they could be like, oh, I'm 2-1. I'm going in around 4. I don't really care so much, but I don't want to play the priority match, like priority asset mirror again. So I'm just going to play fucking Purge, I guess. Done. Now you don't have to play that anymore. I think that would be such a positive change for the game. I think player control over the missions is like the one component we're missing in 11th edition. And I think that would be really cool. Anyway, chat. I think that's it for me. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for watching Tactical Tuesday. We should be back with a Warhamster Wednesday tomorrow. There have, of course, been some interesting little bits of drama going down over the last couple weeks and stuff that we'll get to talk about. But with that, I'm going to hop off. Cheers, everybody. Keep it classy, folks. Have a good rest of your day. And I'll see you in the next one.